Hello, I'm Miss Charlene with one more story about using your Tangram puzzles. The name of today's story is A Sage's Journey, the story of Tangrams. And it's the last book that I have that you will be able to use as you make Tangram puzzles. So let's begin this story, A Sage's Journey, the story of Tangrams. Get out your tangrams. And this is how our tangrams are going to begin. They're going to begin with this sage. A sage is a very wise person. Notice the two large triangles go there. Here is the square. The two small triangles are the feet. The parallelogram is the front leg, and the medium-sized triangle is the back leg. A long, long time ago, in a faraway land, there lived a sage. A sage is a very wise man, and this sage was among the wisest of men. He had the cunning of a fox, the wisdom of an owl, and the memory of an elephant. Because of this, the king asked the sage to perform a most difficult and challenging task. He asked the sage to safely transport a pane of glass to the royal palace. The sage knew this would be a difficult task. The palace was on the other side of the kingdom, across the hottest of deserts, over the widest of rivers, and on the other side of the tallest of mountains. Here's the pane of glass. You may ask, why is a pane of glass so important? Long ago, glass was not common, and this pane of glass was special. This glass was perfectly square. It used to be a window in a royal palace, the first window in the entire kingdom. The sage knew the importance of both the glass and his journey. He also knew many perils lay ahead. In order to get to the palace, he knew that he would have to cross the hottest and driest of deserts, sail the widest and turbulent of rivers, and climb the tallest and rockiest of mountains. The sage gladly accepted the task. And to protect the glass from scratches, the sage wrapped it in the finest and softest silk. To protect it from bumps, the sage wrapped the silk package in the toughest canvas he could find. And to protect it from the rigors of the journey, the sage placed the canvas pack in his strongest leather backpack. So here is the backpack. See if you can place these pieces. Parallelogram, square. Large triangles, small triangles, medium-sized triangle. With his precious cargo securely wrapped, the sage strapped the pack on his back. He turned and looked at his humble house, and he knew that it would be the last time he would ever see it. He turned away and took the first step of his difficult journey. Within a day, the sage approached the largest desert he had ever seen. He looked to his left, and all he saw was desert. He looked to his right, and all he saw was desert. He looked straight ahead, and all he saw was desert. Having the wisdom of a sage, He knew that he could not cross the desert on foot. So he found a camel and continued his journey up on the back of a camel. Okay. Take apart the package and look at the camel. 2 large triangles. There's the right angle, and there's the right angle. Here's the medium-sized triangle. There's the right angle. Here's the square. Here's the parallelogram. Here are the 2 small triangles, and there's their right angles. After days and days of riding the camel, the sage finally crossed the desert. And before long, he came to the largest river he had ever seen. He looked to his left, and all he saw was river. He looked to his right, and all he saw was river. He looked straight ahead, and all he saw was river. Having the wisdom of a sage, he knew he could not cross the river on the back of a camel. So he built a boat, jumped aboard, and set sail across the river. Okay, so let's look at this boat. There's the square. There's the parallelogram. Here's the medium-sized triangle with the right angle there. Here's the 2 large-sized triangles, and there's their right angles. Here's the 2 small triangles, and there's the square. After days and days of sailing in the boat, the sage finally crossed the river. And before long, he came to the largest mountain he had ever seen. He looked to his left, and all he saw was mountain. He looked to his right, and all he saw was mountain. He looked straight ahead, and all he saw was mountain. Can you make a mountain? 2 large triangles on both sides. 2 small triangles here. Parallelogram, square, medium-sized triangle. Right angle, right angle. Right angle, right angle, right angle. The sage knew he could not go around the mountain. The sage knew he could not go under the mountain. He knew there was only one way to get over the mountain, and that was to climb. And so the sage began to climb. Here's our climbing sage. 2 large triangles, the medium-sized triangles. 2 small triangles, the parallelogram, and his head. And he's climbing up that tall mountain. For days and days, the sage climbed and climbed and climbed. After many days of climbing, the sage stood exhausted on top of the mountain. In the valley below, on the other side of the mountain, the sage saw his final destination, the royal palace. And the sage thought, finally, my journey is nearly complete. And as he thought, the sage took his mind off of the mountain slope before him. He tripped on a rock, and the sage was falling down the mountain, over hills, over hills, over hills, overhead. He began falling. So there is our falling sage. The two large triangles. The two small triangles. His square, parallelogram, medium-sized triangle. Falling and falling. Head over heels, over head, over heels, overhead. After falling for what seemed like forever, the sage finally stopped. And horrified, he took off his backpack to inspect the precious commodity. He first removed the canvas package. He carefully unfolded the canvas. He next removed the silk package. He carefully unwrapped the silk. And to his amazement, the glass had not shattered into 1,000,000 tiny pieces. Instead, it broke into only 7 pieces. Two large right triangles. Two small right triangles. A parallelogram, a square, and a medium-sized right triangle. The sage couldn't believe his eyes. He tried to arrange the pieces of glass to form an original square. He arranged them into a rectangle. He arranged them into a parallelogram. He arranged them into a triangle. After many, many attempts, the sage finally arranged the 7 pieces in the shape of a square. He carefully wrapped the pieces of glass in the silk to protect them from scratches. He wrapped the silk package in the canvas. He placed the canvas package in his leather backpack, and the sage continued on his journey. Later that day, the sage arrived at the palace, and he presented the package to the king. So here is the sage bowing to the king as he gave him his package. 2 large triangles. His hands are a small triangle and his feet. His head is a square, the parallelogram are his legs, and the medium-sized triangle. Later that day, when the sage arrived at the palace, the king opened the package and he was shocked to see broken glass. And he demanded an explanation. The sage quickly took the pieces. He arranged them over and over again. He told the king he had ridden on a camel. He told the king he sailed a boat. He told the king he climbed over a mountain. He told the king he'd fallen down the mountain and broken the pane of glass. The emperor was impressed with the sage's story, but he still wanted a window. The sage explained, "What you want is not lost, because with these 7 pieces and your imagination, you can make any figure you desire. It can be a camel, a boat, or even a window." By this time, the king was far too busy arranging the pieces to listen to the sage. Within a few days, the king decreed this new game to be the royal game of the kingdom, and Tangrams were born. The end. I hope you enjoyed our last story where you can use your tangrams. It was called A Sage's Journey, the story of Tangrams. Goodbye.